Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da. Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, 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 geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to another all-new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Today we are talking movies with Jeff Annison, co-founder of Legion M. We'll talk all about Mandy coming out in September 13th. We'll then be joined by Robert Dubac talking about his new show, Book of Moron, and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around the greater St. Louis area right now, hearing this on 105.3 FM or 1380 AM, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're hearing us out there in the world via the World Wide Web, streaming us on your iPad or tablet, thank you very much for finding us there. And of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form on Google Play, SoundCloud, iTunes, or Podomatic, we appreciate your subscribing and listening there each week. This segment brought to you by Marcus Theaters. We will tell you more about our fine sponsors at Marcus Theaters shortly in the broadcast. We want to get right to our first guest. We've had him on the air with us before, the co-founder and president of Legion M, Mr. Jeff Annison. Jeff, thank you very much for being on air with us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back, James.
Anytime. We've talked to both you and Paul before. I think actually Legion M was my very, very first guest of my very, very first broadcast little over 2 years ago. Since then, we've had you on to talk about the Stanley imprint ceremony that I was fortunate enough to be able to go out to LA to attend. We've had you come on to talk about Bad Samaritan. We even had Dean Devlin on. And now we're talking about Mandy starring Nicolas Cage. You guys are on fire.
Yeah, wow. It's I didn't realize that we started like almost together. If it was 2 years ago,
yeah,
that was about when we started. So it's like we share a birthday.
That's right. We're growing up together.
That's right.
But with what you guys have accomplished in just such a short amount of time, I know you just closed your third round of investing. Evidently, I'm only going in on the odd numbers. I jumped on the first one and I did the third one, so I'm waiting for the fifth, I guess. But it's so exciting
like
what you guys
in the World Series.
Exactly right. That's right. But it's just so exciting what you guys were able to do, which is why I had you on for my first broadcast, because I jumped into the first round. It's a fan-owned film company. Just the mission statement you guys had immediately excited me. So for people who have maybe not heard before one of the previous installments when you guys were on, tell people a little bit about Legion M.
Yeah, well, we're, like you said, we're a fan-owned company. It's kind of like all the biggest movie fans in the world and entertainment fans pooled their money and said, let's create an entertainment company of our own. And we're taking advantage of some brand new laws that just went into effect about 2 years ago that made this idea possible for the first time. And we're the first entertainment company that has been built from the ground up, literally from day one, designed to be owned by fans.
And with the movies you guys have already gotten behind, Colossal was the first big one. Jason Sudeikis and Anne Hathaway. I've got that on Blu-ray. I still need to go out and find a copy of Bad Samaritan, which was just this past spring with David Tennant and Robert Sheehan, which was Nail-Biter. And now you've got Mandy coming out, which I believe premiered at Sundance. Am I correct?
It did, yeah, and we were there. Like, it was Mandy's a movie that we got involved with relatively early in the process, back when all we could see was a script, and we saw something that we liked, and we decided to get involved. And it's kind of funny because when you get involved, when you invest in a movie, you never know at the very beginning how it's going to turn out, because everybody starts out wanting to make a great movie. But by definition, only a small percentage of them actually are able to achieve greatness. So for us, we invested in the film, we invested in the score with Johan Johansson, and then it got accepted to Sundance. And we were floored because that is, it's like getting into Harvard. Statistically, I think it's harder to get into Harvard, to get into Sundance than it is to get into Harvard. But it premiered there. We were there with the Legion M Lounge. It was open, to Legion M members and investors, and the movie was incredibly well received. It was actually one of the best reviewed movies at Sundance this year. And then it went on to get to Cannes Film Festival, where it got a 4-minute standing ovation. And so it's very cool and very rewarding, for us and for all of the Legion M investors like you, that this was something that we've been in on from day one.
So when you talked about investing in the movie, you get to see the script and everything like that. What all do you guys look for? Because I loved Colossal. I loved Bad Samaritan. I haven't seen Mandy yet, obviously. Coming out September 13th. If you're looking for that, you can check your local theater listings and see where you can find Mandy coming out. What do you guys look for when you're browsing these scripts, deciding which one's a good investment?
It's a great question. And there's kind of two aspects to it. Hollywood is a combination of art and business. And so it's really kind of two different questions. On the business side, we're constantly seeking, we've got an amazing advisory board, which includes people like Dean Devlin, who you mentioned earlier, who is, in case your listeners aren't aware, he's the guy that created Stargate and Independence Day with Will Smith and Leverage and The Librarians, and has literally generated billions of dollars of box office around the globe. And we've got about probably, I think it's close to 20 people on our advisory board that help us navigate the business side of it. But when it comes to the art side of it, we're really looking for stuff. I mean, we heavily involve our Legion in our decisions. And it's not like, we're taking votes on everything. And we have this saying, you don't make great art by committee. So it's not, where we're voting on plot lines or that sort of stuff. Our feeling is you make great art by finding great artists and investing in them and then staying out of their way. And so for this particular project, this is a very unique movie. It's not a mainstream movie. It's a midnight movie. In fact, we created a label called Legion Midnight specifically for films like this that are designed to kind of push the boundary a little bit and let creators innovate and get outside of the box in the way of, you think of like a David Lynch or a Stanley Kubrick. And so for us, the opportunity to help give young emerging directors. The director of Panos Cosmatos, this is only his second film. He's already being compared by a lot of people to a Stanley Kubrick. And the opportunity to let people like that get out and do something truly innovative, I think is what resonated with us most on this one.
And Nicolas Cage's attachment to this film, was that how early or how late do you guys get in? The cast is already set. Is that a factor for you guys in investing? Or is it kind of like, well, we love the script, we're going to go ahead, and then it's a bonus to find out, wow, you guys have Nicolas Cage for this?
Well, yeah, it's a great question, and it totally depends on the project. So sometimes we're getting in the script stage, and we're literally going out and trying to find our Nicolas Cage and make them part of the package. In this case, he was already attached, and he is, I got to tell you, he is incredible in this film. And, Nick Cage is, I've found, after going through this, is a little bit of a polarizing figure. And he's been in a lot of different movies that are kind of all over the map. But this role, I think, is perfect for him. And there is a scene, and it's not just my opinion, there are a number of the reviews. It's got a 97% Rotten Tomato critical score right now.
Nice.
And a number of the reviews have mentioned this, but there's a scene, I'm not going to spoil it. It's a solo scene with Nick Cage. It takes place in a bathroom. You will know it when you see it. But there's a scene in this movie that will go down in Nicolas Cage's reel of the greatest Nick Cage scenes of all time. He's absolutely incredible. It's Nick Cage playing Nick Cage playing Nick Cage. If you can imagine that, it's like 3 levels of Nick Cage inception.
That should make people want to go out and see it just on the basis of that description alone right there. But I've always found him to be, obviously every actor has their hit or miss movies, but I loved The Rock. I loved Face Off. I mean, he was a staple of 90s action movies for a while there, all the ones he'd done. So I think having him, I would think, is a great asset, but I know there are people who, like you said, he's very polarizing. So did you have any problems at all as far as any from either investors or people who were producing it with you who were like, well, hold on a minute?
No, I mean, I think that there's, to conclusions or people, I should say, make their own conclusions. And, we live in the internet age and there's no shortage of trolls and, people that are just, being jerks for the sake of trying to pick a fight. No, I mean, I think all in all, it's, we know that we're never going to make a movie that pleases everybody because that's impossible. I mean, after all, This is art. We're supposed to have different opinions and we're supposed to argue about, this and that. And that's how we gain a deeper appreciation of it and understanding. So our goal with our slate is to have something for everyone. So, not all the same projects, but I think there's plenty of people out there that are not going to want to go see this film because of the fact that it's dark and it's violent and it's weird in a Stanley Kubrick midnight movie sort of way. And that's fine. We've got plenty of other projects on the slate that are maybe more your speed. I think what's so interesting about this film, and especially because it's so well received, is that for the people that watch the trailer, I think the trailer is like the double black diamond before a ski run. If you watch that trailer and you're like, this is my sort of movie, I think that you are going to be very, very satisfied. At least that's what we've seen so far. And so that's the best advice I can give you.
Perfect. We need to take a quick break. Are you okay to stick with us for one more segment, sir?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to take our first break. We'll come right back talking with Jeff Annison, co-founder and president of Legion M, right after this. Stand by.
Hi, this is Dean Devlin, director of Bad Samaritan, and you are listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. As I mentioned before, I want to thank our sponsor, MarcusTheaters.com. That's their website. You can go on there to check out all the latest movies, locations in 11 different states. You can check out if you're in the Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, or Wisconsin areas. There's a Marcus Theater probably pretty close to you. If you're going to go see a movie, see it at a Marcus Theaters. I know when we had our screening here of Bad Samaritan, you just heard Dean Devlin bringing us back from break, director of Bad Samaritan, starring David Tennant. We had it at a Marcus Theater out in the Chesterfield area, and I don't know if it was a combination of the movie or maybe just the great atmosphere that Marcus Theaters provides, but everyone there at our screening loved it. There was applause. Fantastic time to be had at a Marcus Theaters. If you're wanting to go check out some horror movies, because we are now in the fall season, you can check out October Fright Nights Retro Series. They're showing The Shining, Candyman, the original It, and The Exorcist, all for just $5 admission. That's October 7th through the 27th. You can check out the website to get more information on that. Maybe you're not a scary fan. Maybe you're more of a rom-com kind of guy. Well, that's okay too, because rom-com, $5 admissions for Clueless, My Best Friend's Wedding, and of course in December, Love Actually. Go to MarcusTheaters.com, check out their website, buy gift cards, get your tickets right there on site, all from their convenient website, MarcusTheaters.com. As I did mention, we are talking with Jeff Annison, co-founder and president of Legion M, who helped bring us Bad Samaritan. Dean Devlin's now on their advisory board. With Bad Samaritan, Jeff, did you guys know you had such a jewel on your hands upon reading that script initially?
Well, actually, with Bad Samaritan, we got involved after, pretty late in that. We just, we met Dean. The film was actually completed, and that was one where we had the luxury of being able to actually watch the film, recognize what a great movie it was, and the opportunity to work with Dean was just an absolute slam dunk. It made it a complete no-brainer for us.
It's one of those things you really can't pass by when you've got someone with his track record. Now he's got the new series Outpost on the CW, which is, I've seen more and more people gravitating towards that series. So I'm glad to hear that as well.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Dean's carving out, I think, a really, or I should say filling, a very, kind of cool niche. And it's his stuff is it's kind of like a family-friendly Game of Thrones, for lack of a better description. And we love Dean, and I love the fact that there's projects like the Outpost, which I think has been wonderful.
So we were talking about the newest offering, Mandy. If you want to go to legionm.com, you can check out their website, by the way, and you can see all this stuff from these films we've talked about, including Mandy. Mandy's coming out September 13th in select theaters. Do you guys already have another movie project that you guys are either working on already, or you've got your eyeballs on you can kind of tease us with a little?
Well, absolutely, yes. First of all, we've got a ton of stuff in our mix. In fact, actually, we've got this new thing that we launched recently called Legion Impulse. And it's basically every month or so we reach out to all of the members and investors in the Legion M community, and we ask them about different projects. And it's asking about the projects that are on our slate. It's asking about projects that are out there in the wild. There's also a section where we've got a whole bunch of log lines, and we ask people to help us rate and evaluate the log lines. And we do this, it's really two reasons. One is we want to give our members and investors a say in the direction of the company, and we think that that's important. But it's also a way for us to benefit from the wisdom of the crowd. And if you think about it, like most content decisions at most entertainment companies are done by a small group of individuals, and it's just based on their gut feel, and they got to deal with all the politics and interpersonal relationships and all that sort of stuff, like how they make a decision. And that's how projects get greenlit. And in our case, we've got this amazing resource, which is tens of thousands of some of the most passionate fans on the planet. And the ability to put stuff out there and get their feedback on it is really a differentiator for us. It's part of our superpower. So that's a really long way of saying that buried within that impulse and within those, that this is one of the many ways that we reach out to people, are a lot of the projects that we're looking at. And so there's nothing more that I can talk about right now as far as specifics. I can say that we're going to be making a big announcement at New York Comic Con for a project that we're very excited about. And I can tell you that we've got a half dozen things that we're literally deciding on right now. And if you become a Legion M member, you go check out Impulse, you'll see most of them in there in one form or another.
And talking about the investment process, you just had the third round sold out. Congratulations on that, by the way. And
thank you. Yeah, it was huge. It was way oversold, like in a way that is really encouraging for us and very exciting.
And I noticed on the Legion M website, again, legionm.com, there's the fourth round reservations that people can already click on to make sure they get a spot in that. With people investing, though, I want to make sure people who are listening, it's not really, from my standpoint anyway, I didn't get involved in this thinking, I'm going to make some money out of this. I'm a movie fan. I loved what you guys were doing. And from the people who I met, fellow investors at the Stan Lee event in LA, it seemed like those were the other people who I'd met were people who were like-minded. We're not doing this to get rich. We love the movies. We love this idea. We love what Legion M is doing. Has there been any people who have invested thinking that they're going to flip some stock or something like that and been disappointed? Or has everyone kind of been jumped in and been along for the ride like me?
It's a great question. And I think that there's all types. I mean, there are certainly people that are investing specifically for a financial return. To give you an idea, the lowest investment is $100. Our biggest investor, and by the way, that's the most common investment level. I think the average is about $500. Our largest investor has put in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so within that range, there are all different types. I think that a lot of them are folks like you that are not focused on the financial return, but it's kind of ironic because we're an early stage startup company. And we're very careful to tell people that if you invest in Legion M, it's a high-risk investment. Most startup companies fail. That's as true for us as it was for Facebook when they started, and Walt Disney Studios and Google and Tesla and all that sort of stuff. And so, it's not, you should only invest, if you're going to invest, you should only invest money that you feel comfortable losing. And if you can't bear the thought of that, then you shouldn't invest, or you should invest the level that you can bear losing. But the flip side to that is, with high risk comes the potential for high reward. And because of what Legion M is, we're not, you can go buy shares in Walt Disney Studios or Sony Pictures or something like that, but we are the first company ever that is designed specifically to be owned by fans from day one. And the fact that we have amongst our shareholders people like you and all of these passionate fans, it's such a critical audience for Hollywood. It makes it extremely powerful. So the irony of it is that because there are so many people that are putting in $100 and they're not really caring about whether they make money or not, it actually dramatically increases our chances of giving you a financial return and actually helping you make money. And, our long-term goal is to unite 1 million fans as shareholders of the company. It's baked into the logo, the M with the bar over, which is the Roman numeral for 1 million. And if we're able to achieve that or come anywhere close to it, the people that are getting in now, there's a potentially very strong financial upside. So it's kind of cool like that.
And I know you guys have the online Facebook thing for the members. If you invest, there's that thing, and you talked about getting the feedback from everything like that. Is there, for people who might be listening, wondering, well, is it the more I invest, the more the more feedback I'm able to give, or the more involved I get in the company, or is it just simply a higher stake?
It's a great question, and the answer is it's the latter, right? Legion M is a meritocracy. Everybody gets one vote. We don't listen to our $500 investors more than our $100 investors. And in fact, you can join Legion M for free. In fact, if you go to our website right now, you can't even invest because we don't have a round open. But our members have a say in it, saying things as well. Obviously, when you invest, there's a little bit of a different relationship, and there's some things and there's some decisions that we only put out to investors as opposed to the entire community. But really, the only difference when you invest more is that you own more of the company. And so you're kind of putting more money on the table. And if we are successful, you'll get a larger return. But that's pretty much the extent of it.
And if you are listening, kind of just want to join to see what it's about with no financial commitment, LegionM.com. You can click on the Join Today tab. It's right there on the top. You can also check out the information from the past movies we've talked about. You can see all about their community, the member benefits, the investor info, and all that kind of stuff. With Mandy coming out September 13th in theaters, what do you guys expect? Well, I guess what I should say with you, what would you tell the audience to expect going into Mandy and buying tickets and seeing this?
Well, I thought it was hilarious that you played Barry Manilow's Mandy.
That was Joey. That's my executive producer, Joey's choice. That was fantastic.
Well chosen, Joey. All I can say is the movie Mandy is about as far away from Barry Manilow as you could get. This is a movie that you come into without a lot of expectations. I can tell you as a viewer, this isn't like a popcorn flick. It isn't like necessarily like a lightweight fun night at the movies sort of movie. Like, this is a deeply moving film. It's out there. It's beautiful. It's amazingly shot. It's a movie that will challenge you. It'll move you. And like I said, so far, the reception to it has been absolutely fantastic. So I think at the end of the day, if you go into it, if you're the sort of person that likes stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path, and you go into it with just an open mind, I think that you're going to be blown away.
Fantastic. Once again, LegionM.com is the website for you to find out more. If you're going to go see Mandy this weekend, I'm going to recommend you do it in the Marcus Theaters, marcustheaters.com, to find the tickets for Mandy. Jeff Annison, I want to thank you very much again for taking time to be on air with us again. We look forward to seeing how the movie shakes out this weekend.
Always a pleasure, James. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Anytime. Take care. There he goes, Jeff Annison of Legion M. LegionM.com. You can find out more about how you can get involved. No financial commitment to be part of the community, and then go from there when round 4 reservations hit. We're going to take our next break. We'll be right back talking with Robert Dubac about his new show coming to Westport Plaza, The Book of Moron. Right after this, stand by.
Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look.
Thundercats, ho! Sword of Omens, come to my hand. I, Lion-O, command it. Hi, this is Larry Kennedy, the voice of Lion-O, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. Just waiting for our next guest, Robert Dubac, to call in. We'll be talking about the Book of Moron coming to the Westport Playhouse this weekend. If you are driving around in the St. Louis area, maybe you are looking for something to do, maybe you're looking for someplace to grab lunch, may I recommend historic St. Charles. You can check out their website, not when you're driving around. Obviously, we don't want to cause accidents. DiscoverStCharles.com is their website. There is a whole litany of restaurants, places you can grab a quick snack. There's lots of things to see and do. Main Street along historic St. Charles has a ton of attractions. If you're a history buff, if you like old architecture, if you just like unique shopping places, historic Main Street in St. Charles has it all. Just so many cool things to do. The events coming up. We are, as I mentioned in our last segment, approaching the fall season. Legends and Lanterns will be going on. It's a large Halloween festival. You can interact with living history characters like Lizzie Borden, Baron Samedi, the Brothers Grimm, among others. It's a fun for the whole family. It's a huge event that goes on the last 2 weekends of October. You can get information about Legends and Lanterns at the website. Again, discoverstcharles.com. All sorts of things to see and do. We mentioned the food and drink down there. My goodness, there's so many places, and they're all unique. You can go to get some Missouri wine at one place. You can stop in some place to get some blackberry cobbler at like Magpies. All sorts of places in between. If you're wanting a steak, hit up Lewis and Clark or Trailhead. Not a bad place to have a meal in the entire area. Check them out once again. DiscoverStCharles.com is the website to start planning your trip now. We are joined on the phone by Robert Dubac talking about his upcoming show, The Book of Moron, which don't be confused because Google immediately tries to correct me to Book of Mormon when I Google it, but that's not it. It's Book of Moron. Robert, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, and I'm glad Google is able to define us as the difference between Mormons and morons.
Exactly, yeah. It's very intuitive. It tries to always autocorrect things I'm texting, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. This is what I want. But
Yep. Yeah, my show has got nothing to do with religion. It's all about stupidity, although the atheists will probably ask, what's the difference?
And see, I'll fit in well. If it's about stupidity, this will be one I can relate to. So tell us a little bit about the again, to use a religious term, the genesis of Book of Moron. How did it all come about?
Well, it really, I started it about 3 or 4 years ago. Now, this is my return visit to St. Louis. I was there about a year and a half ago, and I'm now coming back. The show's changed a little bit, but not much, that we can keep things, because there's never a deficiency of stupidity that's going on in the world with all of us, you know. So it's, I mean, the biggest argument is that you never want to get in an argument with a stupid person because you'll lose. They've had more experience. Right. So the genesis for it was the fact that we've become so polarized, we've become so idiotic with kind of almost like little terriers kind of chomping at the bit with our own little ideology that we're not even open to any different point of view. So I started creating the show as, well, what happens if everything was erased in your brain? Say you had you woke up with amnesia, and you had to start from scratch, so that having a blank slate is kind of a good thing, even though you don't have any information, you don't have any of the propaganda and the hype and the spin, so you can use your common sense and all your inner voices to help you come up with a legitimate, cohesive argument on life, basically. So that's kind of how it started. Was how do we? If we had to start with a blank slate, what will we come up with? And you don't come up with big answers. You maybe come up with little answers that help you get to the big answer. But it's a question of all the taboos that we have. Sex, race, religion, politics, and the media. So there you have it. It's a one big life lesson in 80 minutes that everybody can come in and you can turn off television, come to the show, and get your answer to life.
And with all this stuff, like you mentioned, it almost seems like as a society, as a culture, I often cringe at the fact that are we getting stupider? Are we getting dumber? I'm not sure if it's a reliance on technology or an addiction to social media, but what, in your view, is the cause of it all?
Well, I do believe we're getting dumber. Our average IQ has dropped to Q. We need to embrace other options, other ideas. I think we've become, with this kind of microscopic way of tuning in on things, and the bombardment of just ridiculous ideas has spread us so thin that we now can't really decipher, just how to. We can't even remember our passwords, for crying out loud, because there's thousands of websites that we have to have passwords for. So now we have to invent an app to give us our passwords when we want it, when that's a huge amount of energy and exercise going into something that was never there before.
Right.
So, this is basically the show is kind of saying, well, let's kind of get back to normal and let's downsize and see, instead of believing that everything's important, trust our instincts and trust our common sense that, okay, I can figure out what's important to me. I don't have to be listening to, some gas bag try to tell me what's important.
And so the Westport Playhouse is where this show will be this weekend. That's right upstairs from the Funny Bone Comedy Club. If you're in the Westport area, it's very centrally located. When you're doing a tour with these shows, like you said, you're coming back to St. Louis. What makes you decide to come back to certain cities? Is it the reception that you got the last time? Is it geographically just the way your tour runs? How does that all happen?
Well, it is a little bit of both, but yeah, we practically sold out last time we were there, and we were there during a real low end of, not a great time for business. We were there between between Christmas and New Year's, which is usually a time where people don't go out, but we had such a big response. And I think it's also a message or an idea that people really want to laugh about and have fun about. I mean, this kind of performance is not really stand-up comedy that you will go into and just set up joke. This is kind of an entire program that's about a certain idea, which is, why don't we just think smarter? Why don't we, the problem I think with comedy has gotten to be that smart comedy is less and less prevalent out there because not that you can't accomplish it, but just when you're in a comedy club, you're fighting with waitresses, different acts, you're fighting for the attention span of people, so you can't really delve into a topic, whereas you get into the theater, you can. So, and I think this is just something people are striving for. They're looking for something that's above the bar.
And the reviews on your show have been very favorable. I know you've been nominated for Best Actor Ovation Awards and Best New Work for the Ovation Awards.
Yes.
Were you surprised by the reception your show got initially when you launched it?
Well, I wasn't surprised as from what my intentions were. I was surprised at how immediate it was, and I think a lot of that has to do with our political climate, because I actually wrote the show before the last presidential elections. And obviously, a lot of us were surprised by those elections.
Yeah.
And it also, the show turned out to be a salvo for a lot of people on both sides of the fence, because, it's become, and the show's not really a political show. It's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's really about, trying to open up and, understanding what's going on around us and how we got into this situation in the first place. So it got activated. The response and the positive response was activated quicker than I had anticipated, and which is a good thing, because it doesn't matter if she's from after St. Louis, I'm going to Huntsville, Alabama. And then, then I'm going up to Portland, Oregon. So, those are three distinctly different political ideologies, and everybody seems to be embracing the show. So, yeah, it's basically a show that you can bring your inner moron to, and all the inner morons Just bring everybody, even your teenage morons.
And that's one of the things people sometimes who are really stupid don't realize they're really stupid. So that's one of the where you've got to tread lightly sometimes as well.
Yeah, you can't call a stupid person stupid. That's for sure.
Right.
Although most smart people will admit that they're stupid, whereas a stupid person will never admit they're stupid.
Right. And so with the, like you said, I never cover politics on my show at all because I'm going to upset somebody regardless of what I say. And there are people who do it much better than I do. But you found that keeping the show more or less apolitical, like you said, has worked in Huntsville, Alabama, as well as it has in Portland, Oregon. I think that's a testament to, I guess, the style of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, there's going to be some, fracas, but it's pretty even-handed. I mean, if I'm going to make a joke about somebody's ideology in one aspect, 3 or 4 minutes later, I'm going to come back and nail them on the other side. So I'm not saying that I'm avoiding it at all, but I'm trying to be as even-tempered and even-handed as possible.
And that's also very rare these days to hear an even hand when it comes to politics. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's true.
You can get the tickets at metrotix.com for the Book of Moron. I almost did it myself. See, I don't even need Google to autocorrect me. Book of Moron. Robert Dubac, thanks very much for being on air with us this Sunday.
And James, if you tell everyone that they use the code word PLAZA, Plaza, we'll give all your listeners 2-for-1 tickets, 50% off.
Fantastic. There you go, 50%
right
off.
Now.
Go to the website. Use the word Plaza. Robert Dubac, thank you so much for your time today. There he goes. We're going to come right back, wrapping things up on the show here at Geek to Me Radio. Stand by.
Hi, this is Alan Oppenheimer, the voice of Skeletor, and you're listening to Geek to Me.
And we're back. Once again, thanks to my guests, Jeff Annison of Legion M. Go to legionm.com to check that out. And Robert Dubac from Book of Moron, which will be at Westport Playhouse. Go to metrotix.com. And as he mentioned, make sure to type in the coupon code PLAZA, Plaza, to take 50% off of those tickets. A lot to do in St. Louis this weekend if you're going to check out that show at Westport, or if you want to go see a movie, Mandy, as we mentioned, with Nicolas Cage, comes out on September 13th. Going to see movies, we got to preview The Nun this past week. Had a great time with Allied brought faceless nuns to the to the screening so we could all get our picture taken. I'll have those posted on Facebook a little bit later on today, me surrounded by the creepy nuns. But I was looking forward to this movie. The Conjuring universe has been really very good. They've had a couple of misses. I didn't really care for the first Annabelle movie. The second one, Annabelle Creation, was great. And we have The Nun, which obviously this entity first appeared in the second Conjuring. Was very excited to get an actual movie about her origins. It was, for the most part, pretty good. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. But there were a couple of the bits of the dialogue just were kind of like, okay, well, we don't need those comedic little one-liners because those didn't show up, I can't remember, in any of the other Conjuring films. So I thought it felt a little out of place in this one. And the character who was delivering them, Frenchie, played by Jonas Bluquet, I believe I pronounced that correctly, Jonas Bluquet, caused his character to lose some of its gravitas just simply because those lines were like, okay, we didn't need that. That was pointless, that little line just for tension breaker, which it really didn't break tension as far as it kind of took me out of the film a little bit. I'm a fan of the horror genre. I love The Conjuring. Probably the original Conjuring is probably the scariest movie I've seen in the past decade. I know, Joey, we were talking, you hadn't seen The Nun, but you've seen some of the other installments in this universe, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen both Conjurings, but missed the Annabelles. I'm one who does watch the Rotten Tomatoes scores, and they just weren't adding up, really, for the Annabelle. And this Nun isn't looking too good either. But with Blumhouse and how much they spend on their movies, I think they use gum and paper clips usually. So I think they'll make a profit no matter what. Probably
so. And like I said, the setting was great. I loved it. Although now you go see horror movies, you're not you don't dislike the horror genre, right?
Huge fan. I loved when we saw A Quiet Place together.
That's
it was
right.
a wonderful date we had.
And I think the setting, it was in kind of an outlandish or I should say outlying area of Romania in this huge monastery. I kind of am more scared by the ones that take place in your home because it feels more real. Does that make any sense? Or does that you feel the
last
same
time
way
you
at all?
snuck into my house and I was sleeping, it was terrifying.
I apologize. That's the last time I will do Pepto-Bismol and Mentos. That just hit my brain wrong. I'm sorry.
Ambien, it's fun.
But no, I always think that's one of the things. The Conjuring. It was in that farmhouse. Amityville Horror is another kind of, I guess, tangential relation to the Conjuring series because it follows the Newmans, who were not Newmans. That's not right. Is it
Newman?
Yeah, I'm thinking. See, I saw.
It starts with a W or something, but yeah, the Warrens.
Warrens, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Who it follows their story through the Conjuring, the real life investigative team. But yeah, those are always a little more creepy. And Annabelle Creation had that too because it's set at this larger house, but it's out in the country, and it's kind of like, oh, if I go under the stairs, there's this creepy doll's going to come flying out of the woodwork at me. So that's why I don't want to go under the stairs, and that's why people are afraid of basements and everything. But in a large monastery, it was a great setting. Visually, it was beautifully stunning, but I think that may have been part of the problem for me. Just that and the dialogue just didn't quite resonate as well. Had some great visual stuff, a lot of jump scares, and some that were just kind of like, why are you doing that? You're being stupid. Don't follow the nun who you just buried deeper into the cemetery. Why are you doing that? But yeah, it was overall pretty good.
I'm looking at Box Office Mojo right now. Production budget about $22 million, and then estimated total is $53 million for the profits right now.
So they're good.
I think, there's going to be a bunch. Is there none more nuns? No, I think there's going to be a sequel to The Nun.
Is there?
There's got to be. I mean, with money like that coming in, that's double their budget right there.
That's one of the things they say with horror movies is they usually it's a good investment because they make their money back. I don't think I have to ask Max about horror movies that have not recouped their money, if there is such a thing.
And they had a fun marketing campaign that caused controversy. They were scaring people on purpose on YouTube with their pre-roll ads. Like kids were getting scared to death and crying because they had, these jump scares built into their ads that caused a controversy. They got taken down, but the news story got perpetrated in the news cycle. So word of mouth was that this is a movie that will make you cry, I guess, if you're a little kid.
And that's why you shouldn't let your little kids go on the internet.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Keep them off YouTube.
Exactly. YouTube's not a place for children. But yeah, it was overall, I gave it a 7 out of 10. If you're looking for a new movie to see, I think The Nun might be a good bet if you're a horror movie fan, as Joey and I are. And if you're wanting to start, I guess we're getting into that season. We're going to have Brett Hoffman from Marcus Theaters join us here in the coming weeks to talk about the slew of fall movies. My thanks again to that sponsor, Marcus Theaters, for having been with us now for this entire year. And again, obviously, to City of St. Charles for being with us. If you want to combine the two, go to see the St. Charles Marcus Theater. That way you're supporting two of my sponsors, and that'd be great. We'll be back next week. We had a great interview with Richard Dinnick all about the Doctor Who Titan comic series and what to expect from the 13th Doctor. We'll play that for you and more next week. So until then, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch iZombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young Art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Hollywood. Good night.